Welcome to Pan-African Lifestyle, the ultimate Pan-African home. I am your host, Harrison Paul, and we post here regularly. So please make sure you like, share, and subscribe, as we would not want you to miss a thing. If you're a PAL, which is short for Pan-African Lifestyler, welcome back to the tribe.
Living a dream, living the African dream.
And finally, the moment we've all been waiting for. President Obonjo is a self-declared commander-in-chief of the Lafta Republic, a sovereign African state founded on strength, discipline, and unity. Known across borders for his sharp geopolitical insights and unwavering commitment to Pan-African progress, President Obonjo's leadership has inspired both admiration and debate on the world stage. Today, we are honored to host His Excellency for an official conversation on the state of Africa, the global African diaspora, and the future of the African dream. Mr. President, thank you for joining the Pan-African Hub. Welcome.
Look, I am very, very impressed. Not only did you use my protocol, His Excellency, you also were able to pronounce my name, President Obonjo. A lot of people, when they find it difficult to pronounce my name, they call me Obama, President Obama, because it sounds similar. But this is great. You are really, you've made me proud.
I'm laughing already. I gotta try and figure out how I'm gonna make it through this. Mr. President, Africa is a continent rich with history and potential, yet faces relentless external pressures. In your view, what is the greatest challenge holding Africa back from global power and determination?
In my view, there are Africans who don't see themselves as Africans. What we have in Africa right now is we have leaders who are not representing their people, but representing the West. You know, there are lots of African leaders who have been elected, but they haven't been elected. They have been selected by the IMF and the World Bank. They've placed them there for Western interest rather than African interest. What we need to do is we need the Ibrahim Traorés, more Obonjos, more Gaddafis. We need people who want Africa to develop as Africans. That is what we need. It is that simple. We are not united in Africa. A lot of young people I talk to around the world, that is the first thing. That is their dream. But Africa is united, which is what Gaddafi had as a dream. You know Gaddafi, the one that they killed. He wanted Africa united, our own currency. That didn't happen because that goes against Western principles. Until we remove African leaders who are not representing their people, we will never, ever be united. We will never have that united African dream. It won't happen.
And you mentioned Traoré, and we know in the news at the moment, fresh target has been put in his back by the American government. What do you feel about that? What are your thoughts on that? I know that you shared online that you were quite upset about it. Share with us today what your thoughts on that.
I genuinely think that we must find a way to protect Traoré. He's a good friend of mine. We speak at length. He means well. He's not a dictator, as the Americans have called him. He's not trying to be corrupt. A lot of people are not happy with the fact that he took over power, and he's doing very, very well. I think he's one of the greatest leaders that we have had in Africa, apart from me. He's doing pretty well.
Of course.
However, people just need to understand, those who are criticizing him, why did he take over forcibly? Why did it not have an election? It is clear to me that the country was in a state. Military coups just don't happen overnight. It's because the politicians are corrupt and they are trying to govern African people with what I call fake democracy. Democracy that does not work. Democracy in Africa is like a bad kidney transplant. A bad kidney transplant. It does not work in Africa. There is no country in Africa that has moved forward under democracy. And that is why, in my view, we need to find a way of protecting Traore. I can understand why people are saying after a couple of years he should hand over power and have elections. But who are you handing over power to? This is the problem. Who are you really handing over power to? He hands over power to another corrupt politician. There has to be a change of mindset. We should not be running democracy as if it's a business in Africa. It is not a business. You are there to serve your people. We must not copy what is happening in America, where billionaires have stolen democracy and have elected themselves. The Musks of this world, the Trumps of this world. Look, there is a real opportunity for Africa to show leadership and governance. Traore will succeed, but he will only succeed when his people are behind him. And that's why there's a division, because a lot of African leaders do not support him because he came under military coup. But he's also exposing them because he's making Burkina Faso. Look, if I tell you, when I went to the West End recently, this is how popular Traore is. Some white people came to me screaming, Ibrahim Traore. They thought I was Ibrahim. That is how popular he is. So we must not lose him. I heard there was one American black military officer criticizing Traore and basically saying that Traore is a dictator, that he is protecting Russia and China. Are you aware that the West, as soon as they see that you are delivering for your people as an African leader, they call you a dictator. They call you a dictator immediately. So I wish him well. I know he will succeed, but we need to protect him. You know, he's had, in my view, he's broken the world record. 18 assassination attempts. I'm not talking about Donald Trump and his assassination attempts. He only had 2. Traore has had 18 assassination attempts.
And you made a little undertone there in your video, I noticed, and you said, I'm talking about a real assassination attempt. You don't think the Donald Trump one was you weren't, insinuating that the ones against Trump were not so real, were you?
You mean the ketchup assassination? No, I don't know. I don't know. But this is what I would say to you. How many African leaders survive an assassination attempt and they get up and say, bring my shoes, fight, fight, fight. I'm not saying any more than that. Are you okay?
I'm okay, Mr. President. And on the topic...
Listen, if someone was going to shoot me, I will be out of there. I won't be thinking of my shoes. I won't be thinking of raising my hand as a fight. No way. Impossible. Totally impossible. But look, that is American democracy. We're talking about Africa. So if that's how they carry out their assassination attempts, that's okay.
And now, staying on the topic of just, the vulnerabilities of being, a president or being, someone who stands on behalf of a country, I really wanted to get into your experience in terms of the vulnerabilities. Do you feel nervous? Do you feel anxious at times? Because you're someone who doesn't shy away from the tough topics. You're someone who doesn't say what people want to hear. So do you ever feel, vulnerable?
I never felt vulnerable until these young West African leaders, military leaders, started propping up. So when Traore came to the scene, and the Senegalese and the Gabon leaders, and they were doing things in terms of France, someone jokingly said to me, Mr. President, I hope, honestly, I received a message that I hope they don't mix you up with these young West African leaders and that you don't get assassinated by the CIA and FBI. And I really do mean that, because the number of, look, I have been broadcasting on TikTok. And last Saturday, I was banned live on TikTok because someone believed I was an African warlord. And what is an African warlord doing on TikTok? So it has become so real that people, and this is you, young man, you are educated. It is clear you're educated.
Thank you.
There
Thank
are
you, sir.
people who are underneath internet and they can't tell what's true and what is fiction.
Wow. So true.
And that is worrying for me. So when you talk about what do I want for Africa? I want young African people to be educated. I want young African people to know how to hold their politicians to account.
Right.
That is not about money. It's not about before an election, a politician gives you a bag of rice and then you vote for them. You are selling your soul. You're selling your future. Understand that your vote counts. Understand that you have an impact. And I know I'm contradicting myself, but the point is this. Not every country is going to have military leaders. There are people who are going to have to vote, but vote wisely. Don't vote because you've been given money. Don't vote because you have a bag of rice, because you're hungry. Vote because you know that this person will make an impact in your life.
Definitely. And obviously this is us pressing towards the African dream, which we are, huge about here on Pan-African Lifestyle. But when you hear the term the African dream, what does that vision mean for you, for the people of Africa, and for the global African family?
Look, a united Africa. An Africa that we believe in, an Africa that believes in its leaders, an Africa that can help its people.
Right.
An Africa that is self-reliant, not relying on the IMF or the World Bank.
Right.
Not relying. I mean, when I posted a video by Ibrahim Traoré, someone had the audacity to ask me whether we should find out what Putin would say about the video. Why do I need Putin's permission?
There you go.
Or validation? As an example. So, I'm not stealing Donald Trump's thunder. They want to make America great again. We want to make Africa great again. African products, African goods, Africa. Look, let me give you an example. Look at how Afrobeats has taken over the world.
Right.
Nobody listens to R&B anymore. I can't remember the last time I listened to an R&B. It is always Burna Boy or Ashake or all these Nigerian. Yeah. And that is, in my view, that is success. But if those Afrobeat stars can do that, what is wrong with African politicians?
Wow.
We should be the model for leadership across the world. We should be showing America. And actually, we've shown America. We've had successful elections. Even though, look at how I'm dressed. I don't believe in elections. It's too expensive. The taxpayers. But Donald Trump, when he lost the election, did not accept. In Nigeria, they had elections. The guy who lost accepted. There's so many examples of smooth transition. So Africa has got it. The dream for me, for Africa, is that every young person in Africa doesn't need to look at the West, doesn't need to look at leaving Africa to make a better life.
Right.
African leaders, look, my young man, when you talk about the African dream, ask me how many African leaders can tell you what the African dream is. At the moment, their dream is their pockets.
Yeah.
Yeah? If you ask the Nigerian president, what is the African dream? He will not be able to answer that. I'd be surprised if he can even answer the Nigerian dream. That is where I am coming from. That is why I use my platform to awaken people. My comedy is about making sure that people understand that you must hold your politicians to account. There's no point a politician is sending their children abroad, having medical abroad, when you have a country with so much resources and you cannot cater for your own people. We have migrants dying, leaving Africa to come to God's own country or to come to Britain that is so messed up at the moment. So we need, if people understand accountability and being able to hold their politicians to account and understanding that you voting someone in is not a favor. It's a responsibility, a civil service to the people. And there are not so many people like that. I'm sorry, there aren't. And that is why we are having, I know you're very young, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know lots of Africans, young Africans, who believe that military dictatorship is what will save Africa. That is their dream.
Yeah.
Not democracy. People are tired. The number of people who write to me, my friend, on a regular basis, I am not boasting here, asking for help.
Yeah.
That is a failure, a collective failure of leadership. Why would people who have bought homes in Nigeria come and sell their homes and come to England and be working as cleaners?
Wow.
You know, so the African dream is African people staying in Africa, building our vision together, the right leaders in the right place, people who want to serve and not serve their pockets. It's that simple.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Your Excellency, you know, continue.
No, I don't know how many people are going to watch this. When I'm talking about African dream, I am not talking about Wakanda. I'm not talking about the Wakanda dream. That is fictional. If you can have the likes of China, look at China.
Right.
Where was China 60 years ago? Or how many years ago? Where was Dubai 50 years ago? If those countries can do it, any country in Africa can do it. What we lack is leadership. And until young people hold their people to account, if they don't hold their politicians to account, I'm sorry, it doesn't work. It will never work.
And you're mentioning that obviously the hope is not within the leadership. The hope is within, you know, Africa's vast, you know, reservoir of knowledge, wealth, and influence.
Look, let me just explain one thing. During a live TikTok, I asked a number of people, because on Saturday I'm on TikTok talking to people from around the world. And I asked some people and I said, can you honestly tell me that if you were running, for example, Nigeria, would you be corrupt or not? Some people said yes, they will still.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem is. Some of the issues we face in Africa is not about the government or leadership. It's about the people.
Right.
People have been institutionalized to think about corruption.
Right.
So, because we have this government who stole, when I get in there, I'm also going to steal. That is the mentality of some people.
And how do we fix that, Mr. President? How do we,
the mindset has to
we
change.
heal that?
People need to understand what is good. Look, I think there is an opportunity in terms of the internet. Yeah, people need to educate themselves, watch the right programs. So, for example, I was watching the other day, they had a league table of the happiest countries in the world. And Denmark was one. Now, if you look at Denmark, their GDP, great. You know, they cater for their people. Why are their people happy? I'm not talking about false happiness now, because some people will tell you, oh, the happiest country in the world is Nigeria. Hello, yes, maybe because of the sun. But on a serious note, Denmark is on the list of one of the happiest countries in the world. Wow. Because they cater for their people.
Right.
They have effective politicians who connect with their people, who want to do things for their people.
And that goes to my next question here, because we here at PAL believe that global power isn't just measured by GDP alone, but by the strength of culture. Do you believe cultural sovereignty is essential for Africa to reclaim its place in the world?
Definitely. We have Africans who behave like Europeans in Africa. Yeah, we have Africans who buy European goods rather than African goods. They want to be seen in designer clothes, the Gucci's. I was going to say Primark, but Primark is not a fashion shop. It's not.
It wouldn't be.
But you get my drift. They want to be seen wearing Western outfits. Why can't you promote your own?
Wow.
Burkina Faso, they've started producing cars, from what I heard. How many Africans are going to go to Burkina Faso to buy cars? They'd rather go to Germany.
Wow.
So we need to change our mindset. We need to stop blaming our leaders. It's not just about our leaders, it's about the people. The people have been indoctrinated to think in a certain way. And that's why I love what you guys are doing in terms of the Pan-Africanism organization, because that is where you start raising awareness.
Right.
How many people, listen to me, how many people know about Nkrumah?
Very little, sir.
The other day, I was having a conversation with someone, a South African, a young South African. He knows about Trevor Noah, but does not know about Nelson Mandela.
Woo. Oh, that's a new low.
Yeah, that's a new low. So you know Trevor Noah, but you don't know about Nelson Mandela. And there's nothing wrong with Trevor Noah. I like his comedy. How can you be a South African and not know about Nelson Mandela?
So when it comes to reclaiming Africa's dignity and beyond economics and trade, where do you believe the continent must begin first? Do you believe it begins at knowledge? Where do you believe it begins at?
I genuinely believe it begins with knowledge and raising awareness.
Yeah.
That's my view. It's that simple. We need to re-educate ourselves. The educational system has to change. There's no point raising African people reading William Shakespeare or whatever it's called. I'd rather have Chinua Achebe. Things fall apart.
Yeah.
Yeah? Teach them about African culture. Because some of these educational systems were created by colonial masters. What is the point of going to a secondary school where the boarding house names are named after English people? Field House, Powell House, these are all English people. Don't get me wrong, I have nothing against English people. But do you go to Eton, for example, and is there an African name in Eton? No. Even when we tried to raise a statue from some African leaders in the UK, they kicked a fuss. This is what I'm saying. It's knowledge. And when people understand what has been taken away from them, they will do what they can to redress the balance.
Wow. And finally, Mr. President, what message would you offer to the youth of Africa and the diaspora as they step into leadership, entrepreneurship, and the creative roles shaping the future?
If you have an opportunity as a young African leader to have a platform in Africa, then use it wisely. I would also urge, because there is a clamor for youths to leave Africa and come to the West, don't come. Stay at home. Because you will face many challenges. And in a way, you will regret coming to the West.
I have met a lot of people regretting, Mr. President. You're right. You're correct with that.
Yeah, the West doesn't want.
No.
They're blaming immigrants for everything. They can't sort out the education immigrants. They can't sort out whatever it is. Homelessness is the immigrants. They blame immigrants for everything.
Everything.
Everything. Harry has left and is gone to the United States.
Immigrants.
Immigrants. Everything is immigrants. The trains are delayed, is immigrants. The NHS is not working, the hospital's not working, immigrants. Everything is immigrants. They lack the leadership. They blame immigrants for everything. Immigrants.
Gosh.
So that's what I would say to people, especially young people. I wish them well. They deserve better. For those who pray, pray that you have good leaders who can move your country forward.
Yeah.
That's the key, because your future is based on those leaders. Use your votes wisely. Whether you're given an opportunity to vote, use your votes, wisely. But the greatest message I could give them is understand your roots, understand your culture. Don't get too influenced by Western culture.
Definitely.
Yeah?
Definitely.
Know your languages. Yeah? Understand the meaning of your name. When you have children, give them African names.
That's the one.
Kwasa, Kajuma, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
We don't call them John. They're not John.
Mm.
They're Africans. Let's reclaim our narrative.
Definitely.
Because Africa will only unite when young people, because these leaders that we've got, including myself, in time, how long do I have left? Maybe another 30 years or whatever it is. The real people, the future lies with young people like you.
Yeah.
You need to stay woke. You need to stay awake and continue to fight the battle.
Wow. Your Excellency, on behalf of the Pan-African Lifestyle community, I thank you for your presence, your vision, and your unwavering commitment to Africa and Africans. Your leadership is a reminder that the future of Africa is not only possible, it is non-negotiable. Thank you so much, sir.
Look, it's been a pleasure. I just want to thank you all for watching me. I won't tell them where they can find me. They will know. My people will contact them, and if they don't follow me, I will make sure they follow me one way or the other.
We will have your contacts and your socials up on the screen as well, sir. Mr. President.
Look, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's too late for me to eat now. It's 9:30. But thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Excellency, on behalf of the Pan-African Lifestyle community, I thank you for your presence, your vision, and your unwavering commitment to Africa and Africans. Your leadership is a reminder that the future of Africa is not only possible, but it is non-negotiable. And to our global Pal Nation, thank you so much for tuning in. Please, please, please keep the conversation alive. We want to hear your voice. Let us know what part of today's conversation sparked new thinking, new pride, and new action. I've been your host, Harrison Paul. Thank you so much.
In a dream, living the African dream.